the Lab Interpretation Guide for the DestinyWell Vitamin D Profile. At DestinyWell, we define laboratory ranges in a sophisticated way. We use the standard ranges, represented by the blue bar here, from each reference lab that does a particular test to define the lab high and the lab low. If you have thyroid test results that are too low based on the lab's formal norm, then you have a diagnosis of lab low thyroid function or hypothyroidism. Similarly, for glucose, if you have a lab high blood sugar of over 126 on 2 occasions, then you meet the formal diagnosis criteria for diabetes. That's needed to make a medical diagnosis. But at DestinyWell, we think that there can be a lot more nuance. We believe that there's often an optimal range based on what we've found going forward helps people to live the healthiest lives, to be the healthiest, and to avoid disease. We triangulate this with the medical literature, with other people's standards, with our clinical practice experience, and all the different data points we can get, so we can come up with what we believe is optimal for a particular test result. DestinyWell also, in the red bars here, will define a DestinyWell high and a DestinyWell low. These may or may not line up exactly with a laboratory high or low, because sometimes we think that the range can be higher or lower, or that it needs to be different. And in between the optimal and the green bar, and the low and the high in the red bars, we have orange zones for moderately high and moderately low. They're not quite optimal, but they're not in the high or low zone. Vitamin D is called the sunshine vitamin. It's called this because the human body can synthesize vitamin D from cholesterol when it's exposed to sunlight. People who live in the far north, or people who are not out in the sun, as well as those with darker skin, have a harder time creating enough vitamin D in their own body. Vitamin D is of key import to many tissues in the body. It's critical for the regulation of the immune system, but almost every tissue has vitamin D receptors and needs it for adequate function. Bone is a great example of this. New bone is laid down with the help of vitamin D. It's also important to have other minerals like magnesium and zinc. But vitamin K2 is also a super important factor to be given with vitamin D. It assures that the body uses the vitamin D and the calcium in appropriate ways, and that the calcium doesn't get laid down in places like the coronary arteries or other tissues that don't need it. Sunshine or not, people can be deficient in vitamin D. Even if you live in a sunny area, often people wear sunscreens, they aren't out during much of the day, they live in the basement, and their diet is low in vitamin D. So it's important to keep track of your vitamin D and to measure the level to know where you really are. Vitamin D is made from cholesterol in the body with exposure to sunlight. It can also be made with exposure to specific lamps or other types of sun lamps. Fish like salmon and tuna have vitamin D. Many cereals and other products are fortified with vitamin D, and it's very frequently added to milk and to some type of orange and other juices. Egg yolks, liver, and cod liver oil are also all good sources of vitamin D. Vitamin D ranges are a bit tricky. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, and at extremely high levels, it does have toxicity. The normal lab range from our laboratory partner is greater than 25 nanograms per deciliter. At DestinyWell, we think the optimal vitamin D level is usually somewhere between 35 and 80. 35 is adequate for most functions in the body, and a value of around 70 to 80 is often helpful if you have immune deficiencies or if you have autoimmune diseases or other concerns like that. Values less than 25 are too low, 25 to 34 are mildly low, 81 to 100 are mildly high, but toxicity generally doesn't occur there, and over 100 is where we would draw the cutoff because we don't see much benefit, and at levels significantly higher than that, toxicity occurs. So don't get over 100 if you can help it, and try to be between 35 and 80. When you hear people talking about vitamin D, they're usually talking about 25-hydroxy vitamin D. This includes vitamin D2 and vitamin D3. The DestinyWell test measures both of these together for a total 25-hydroxy vitamin D. It's also called 25-OH vitamin D. D3 may also be synthesized as well as being extracted from animal products. It may be somewhat more active than vitamin D2 that comes from plants. Occasionally, when you read about or research vitamin D, you'll come across references to 125-hydroxy or 125-OH vitamin D. This is the activated form of vitamin D. The body adds an extra hydroxyl group to activate the vitamin D, and that's the type that's most active in the body. This factor can go up in disorders like tuberculosis or certain fungal infections, and it can be deficient and need to be replaced specifically in renal failure and conditions where the body can't make this conversion. But most of the time when you hear about 25-hydroxy vitamin D, or you just hear about people talking about vitamin D in general, they're talking about D2 and D3, which is the 25-hydroxy form. At DestinyWell, we've been extremely fortunate to find some amazingly good coaches, people with backgrounds of success in varied fields who bring all sorts of resources and talent and skill to help you. These folks have many years of clinical experience, and they know how to be of assistance at every step of the way, from motivation to connecting you with the right resources to finding things that you need to get you on your journey. To learn more, go to destinywell.com/coaching to meet our team and find out how they can be of service to you.